All right, we are back, Tri-State Sports guys. We're going to get right into the 5 and 10 here. Without Tony and O, I'm going to be able to fly through this 5 and 10, definitely in under 10 minutes. So let's get right into it. Topic number one, David Garrard getting cut yesterday. I mean, to me, that was a huge shock. He's not a great quarterback. He's not a Pro Bowl quarterback, but he's definitely an above-average quarterback. And the fact that he's not going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL this year, it really just almost goes to prove my point about these salary caps. I mean, my co-host loves salary caps, wants to Major League Baseball have a salary cap. Well, there are some benefits to it, but this is one of the casualties of it. You're going to have a guy here who clearly should be starting in the NFL, and he's going to get cut because they want to save $9 million against the cap. And it's just it lessens the product. It lessens the product on the field. So for you to tell me that you think that it's more entertaining to watch Luke McCown or whoever the hell's starting for them over David Garrard, you're kidding yourself. So it lessens the product the NFL's putting out in the field. It's not, these type of cuts are kind of few and far between, but, David Garrard is in there with the Matt Hasselbecks in the middle, 12 to 18th ranked quarterbacks in the NFL. He'll give you 25 touchdowns, quarterback rating in the 80s. He's a solid quarterback. I'm sure there's some other teams that'll love to pick him up. I think by the end of the season he'll be starting somewhere, but where, I don't know yet. Topic number two, we got to talk a little bit about Tiki Barber. We talked about it earlier. Like I said, I love being right, but it goes to show you running backs. They're almost a dime a dozen. Unless you're a super talented guy, I think teams just didn't want to take the risk on a guy like Tiki Barber and say, you know what, for a backup running back, do we want all the hoopla that's going to surround Tiki Barber? Do we want to bring in a guy who's 36 years old and hasn't been on the field in 4 years? Take on that injury risk, take a roster spot away from some young hungry kid who I'm going to have to pay less and he's going to want to work harder because he's got everything to prove. It doesn't surprise me. Owen and I both predicted we didn't think he'd be on a team. Like I said, I don't know why it's satisfying to me, but it does make me happy to see him not do well. Topic number 3. We're going to get into Peyton Manning a little bit. He is the reigning Iron Man in the NFL with Favre's retirement. It's a shame. The NFL is not as good when Peyton Manning's out on the field. And you're really going to see his value when he's not on that field because it's great. And I think Kerry Collins had a very good NFL career. You're going to see just a precipitous drop-off in their offense between Kerry Collins and Peyton Manning here. And for all you guys that went out and drafted Reggie Wayne or even Dallas Clark and these guys, you're gonna have a hit to your fantasy team because their stats are gonna go down. He makes everyone around him better, and you have a neck injury. That's not something to mess around with. So, I'm hoping the best because I like Peyton Manning. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a great quarterback. I think the NFL's better when he's on the field. So obviously we're gonna, we wish him a speedy recovery. I hope he's out in the field, soon. I just hope, they don't beat the Jets. So sticking with the injuries, we got to talk a little bit about the Giants' injuries. I mean, yet another injury to their linebacking core. Their defense has been decimated. I mentioned it earlier in the show. This team was a borderline playoff team if they were healthy. When you just continuously get injuries at many different depth levels. I mean, now you're talking about, God forbid they have another major injury. I mean, their offense is pretty much intact, but they lost Steve Smith and they lost Kevin Boss. So they need all these guys to play very well. Their defense, which has been their strength, for the last 5-6 years, is now. It's now in question. They're not deep. Their defensive line with Osi Umenyiora out, where is that going to be? I mean, I still think he's a powerhouse as a pass rusher, and without him, where does that put them? I mean, for them to make the playoffs this year, I'll give all the credit in the world to Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning. If they go out there this year and win 10, 11 games, then you'll see me at the end of the season this year go on the show and say I was wrong, but I don't see them making the playoffs. I don't think anybody can overcome those kind of injuries. and especially the Giants, who weren't an overly great team to begin with. Topic number 5. This came from my brother on the message board. He's a big Dolphins fan. He wanted me to talk a little bit about whether I thought the Dolphins were a sleeper pick. And I actually think that's not an outrageous statement to make that they're going to be a sleeper pick. I mean, let's not forget they were close to making the playoffs last year before that terrible loss towards the end of the season. I think it was to the Bills, like second to last week of the season, actually got the Jets into the playoffs, made their last game meaningless. But they're not too far away. Their defense is very good. I mean, he made some outrageous statements. You can go on the Facebook wall. I mean, he said Reggie Bush was the best running back in that division. Reggie Bush isn't even really a running back. I mean, the guy's. I'd still take Sean Green. I think any NFL team in the world would take Sean Green over Reggie Bush. And Reggie Bush isn't a true running back. He just isn't going to get you those tough 3-4 yards. He's the anti-Curtis Martin, who is the king of the 4-yard rush. You know, he's the anti that. He'll give you a great highlight reel play, but he'll also get bottled up, 3 to 4 times. So I'm not very sold on Reggie Bush, although I think fantasy-wise he might do some things because of his big playability and his ability to catch the ball in the backfield. I don't know as far as football-wise goes if I would consider him the best running back in that division. But look, they got a good defense. They got Wake, who nobody could deny. He's good. Chad Henne, he's another solid quarterback. I think his stats make him look worse than he is. I actually think he's better than his stats show. When I watch him play, he's got a good arm, slings the ball around. I've seen him carve the Jets up at times, so maybe I'm just a little biased because he seems to play a little better against the Jets. But I think he has the potential to be a good quarterback. I thought it was kind of unfair when the fans were all chanting Kyle Orton, like Kyle Orton was going to be the answer there. Look, if you're not a playoff team with Chad Henne, Kyle Orton doesn't make you a playoff team. I don't think the delta between the two of those two guys is too huge. So I think he could be good. They got Brandon Marshall. I know my co-host loves Devon Best. He thinks he drafted him in like the second round a couple weeks ago, or a couple days ago in one of our drafts. Guy loves him. He's going to catch 80 passes, 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, blah, blah. He's good. Let's not go overboard with Devon Best, though. He's okay. I mean, I see them. I think, he mentioned Peter King picking them to go 6-10. I do think that's a little ridiculous. I think they're more of an 8-8 type team. And like the NFL, I mean, a lot of teams are 8-8, quality teams. So, 2 games go this way, 2 games go that way. Is it outrageous to think they'll go 6-10? No, a couple bad breaks, they can go 6-10. Is it outrageous to think they can go 10-6 with a couple good breaks? No. I mean, they might go 10-6, and 10-6 might get in the playoffs, and which brings me back to the original point. And that does make them a potential sleeper because they do have the potential to go 10-6. It would not shock me for them to go 10-6. They weren't an awful team last year, and I don't think they lost anybody big. And I think Chad Henne has the potential to grow a little bit. So I think to call them a sleeper, that's there's not many sleepers because everybody loves to pick the dark horse. Everybody's talking about Detroit or Tampa Bay and these guys. I haven't heard one person talk about the Dolphins. Not anybody. So for them to go 10-6, they would be the true definition of a sleeper, which would be terrible for the Jets because I freaking hate the Dolphins. So that's our show for this week. It's me flying solo. I think we did all right. Ka did a fantastic job behind the microphone. I'm going to come back. We got one more segment. I'm going to do my locks of the week. We'll be right back with the Tri-State Sports Guys.